to the Truth in My Days podcast, where we defend the Word of God against the challenges of men.
Hi, I'm Dana Torse, and welcome to another episode of the Truth in My Days radio program. Today, I'm here with John Torse and Jason Chan as they discuss the important topic of creation and evolution. We are continuing from the previous episode. We hope you enjoy.
Now, here's the problem. If uniformitarianism is right, each of these layers must have been laid down separately and across a long period of time. It must have hardened, turned to stone, before the next layer is laid down. By the time you have 3 or 4 layers laid down, they should all have been stone. Now, imagine you have a few flat layers of stone and you try to bend it. What's going to happen to them?
Trying to bend a few layers of stone?
Yeah.
It'd be very difficult to.
Yeah, but suppose you're really, really strong, like myself, for example, or Tarzan, and you can do that. What's going to happen?
They would crack.
They would crack, and they would break. They're brittle, right?
Yeah.
You can't bend them into nice curves. The only way they could get bent into curves like this is if they were soft still. Because if you have mud layers, those could be bent.
Yep.
But if that's the case, that means these layers had to have been laid down essentially at the same time, one right after the other, long before any of them had a chance to harden. So these kind of, what we call wharves, hairpin wharves, demonstrate that these layers were laid down very quickly one after another, not across millions and tens of millions of years as the evolutionists claim. Now, someone will say things like, well, maybe they were laid down and then things got really hot and softened them to the point where you could bend them. The problem is if you heat them to that level, they change form. They become metamorphic. They're no longer sedimentary rocks.
Right, yep.
Okay, so if you have sedimentary bent layers, then those had to have been laid down one right after the other. And we have them all over the place. And another one I'm going to show you is what's called Polystrate fossils. And we have these all over the world. Polystrate fossils are fossils that cut through multiple of these rock layers.
Okay.
A picture of polystrate tree trunks near Saint-Étienne in France. And you can see these tree trunks cutting across numerous layers. How many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Well, 9 layers or more. Now, according to the Uniformitarian model, how did this happen? Well, you had a tree trunk, and sediments are slowly depositing at the bottom level. Okay, and that takes millions of years.
Okay.
And then you get a second layer.
Okay. I see.
What is a tree trunk going to stay around?
The tree trunk would have decomposed long before then.
Exactly. You would have decomposed long before that. But perhaps the rock layers formed and then the tree trunks were thrust in after the fact by some force.
Wood is not stronger than rock.
Yeah, so. You can't really do that. And even if you could, if you look at the pictures, you would notice cracking, wouldn't you? Like broken layers and cracking around where the tree went in. But there isn't any. So once again, what the polystrate fossils show is that these layers were actually laid down very soon, one after the other. Right. Now, the flood would have done this. As sediments are being carried, broken trees are being carried, you can see as they're settling down, you could get this kind of phenomenon.
Okay.
And in laboratories, it's already been shown, actually, when you have sediments being carried by water, they tend to self-separate into layers based on things like mass and density and so on.
Okay.
So this is very, very consistent with the flood model. Can't be explained by uniformitarian principles. So what do you think the old Earth people do with these things?
They try to come up with some explanation.
Yeah, take a guess what explanation they come up with.
I have no idea.
This is the explanation. Oh, wherever you see these polystrate fossils, yeah, there it was quick. There the layers were laid down quickly. Everywhere else they were laid down slowly.
Okay.
And that's a logical fallacy called special pleading. Okay. Once the evidence shows that it had to be laid down quickly here, where's your evidence that it was laid down slowly elsewhere? They have none.
Okay.
But they're saying, we should have special explanation for these ones over those ones without giving good and sufficient reason for it. And that's a logical error, as I said, called special pleading.
Okay.
Now, Another problem for the evolutionary models was called out-of-sequence fossils. Now, if these layers were laid down slowly, they should follow geologic time. You should have the most primitive organisms in the earliest layers, and as you move to higher layers, you should have the more advanced, more evolved organisms. Mm-hmm. And they should be in this evolutionary sequence as you go up through the layers. You shouldn't have what's called out-of-sequence fossils, fossils of organisms in layers before they were supposed to exist. This is so significant that in that debate, that high-profile debate between Bill Nye, the science guy, and Ken Ham, the director of Answers in Genesis, Bill Nye said, I think at least twice, that the main reason he believes in evolution is this, that the fossils are always in the right order. And he said, if you show me one out-of-sequence fossil, I will convert here and now. He actually said that, and I was saying, do it, Ken, give him some, and then challenge him and see what happens. Because there are many of them.
Oh, okay.
And unfortunately, Ken let him wriggle off the hook. He didn't do that. But I would have hit him with that right away. Now, Stephen Austin, working with, I think, ICR, has documented over 200 out-of-sequence fossils just in the United States alone.
Mm-hmm. And sorry, what is ICR?
Institute for Creation Research.
Okay.
Now, we've already actually looked at one out-of-sequence fossil.
Right, yeah,
earlier,
the Laetoli footprints.
The Laetoli footprints.
Yeah.
Okay? According to their reasoning, you should not have modern human footprints in a layer 3.6 million years old. That's an out-of-sequence fossil. Mm-hmm. And what they did, you remember what they did with it?
They buried it.
Yeah, and they said who made it?
Ancestors.
Yeah. The Australopithecus, right? Yeah. But, and they know that that's not true. So when they say, look, you show me one out-of-sequence fossil will convert, they won't. They probably know that there are many of them. And they try to find ways to explain it away. But no matter how many you find, they're not going to convert. Okay? The Laetoli footprints should have ended any kind of story of human evolution, and it didn't. And there are other examples. The coelacanth, for example. This was supposed to be a primitive fish, and I think we talked about this as well.
So, yeah.
Because this is the one they told us died out 65 million years ago with the dinosaurs, and this was an intermediate form that used its little fins to walk on the ocean bottom, and it died out, right? You shouldn't find any in modern layers. Well, not do we find them in modern layers. We found actual living ones. Mm-hmm. So they're certainly out of sequence now. And they didn't use their fins for walking on the ground. And they weren't intermediate forms. Mm. So what do? I said, coelacanth didn't die 65 million years ago. He lived to now, so it's not out of sequence. And everything keeps getting spread out to accommodate the discoveries. So it's an ad hoc dodge to get around the problem. Wollemi pines. These are supposed to evolve long after the Jurassic period, but we found them now in Jurassic layers.
Okay.
One of the most interesting ones are pollen fossils.
Pollen fossils?
Pollen.
Okay.
Flowering plants use pollen as part of their reproduction.
Yeah.
And flowering plants supposedly evolved long after. Long after like, the age of the dinosaurs. It's mostly ferns and stuff. You shouldn't find fossil pollen in Precambrian rock, which is the oldest layer of rocks that we have, and yet they've been found. The Roraima Formation in Venezuela, and they even found some in the Grand Canyon.
Okay. So
this is as out-of-sequence fossil as you can get. And yet they still will not change their minds. So why, though? Well, they insist that, we have scientific proof that the Earth is so old. We have scientific proof that the Earth is 4.6 billion years old. People will tell you that if you stop them on the street. But then if you ask these people, really, what evidence has convinced you of that? How many of them do you think could give you an answer?
Probably not a lot. I probably would have said the same thing and wouldn't have been able to provide any.
Well, you probably could have pulled out some if you were
going to try. Might talk a little bit about fossil layers, but apparently doesn't work. Another thing might be radiometric dating.
Yeah, exactly. There are a few that come up, and fossils is one of them. But we've looked at the fact that it doesn't fossils don't actually prove that. I think that we have talked about fossils. The idea is that it takes so long to make them, and we've looked at the fact that, in fact, you can make them quite quickly.
Yeah.
You can fossilize chicken bones in the lab in 5 or 10 years.
Yeah.
The other one that usually comes up is carbon dating.
Mm-hmm.
And carbon dating is when 2 carbon atoms go out for dinner in a movie, right?
No.
Well, you would think no, but for most people, ask them what exactly is it, they couldn't come up with a better answer than that.
Okay.
They don't really know. They don't know what the method is. So when they say that, ask them, okay, how does it work? What is it? How does it work? And most of them just look at you funny. They have no idea. And yet they're convinced that the Earth is 4.6 billion years old because carbon dating says so, and we won't question that. We have no idea how it works. We have no idea if it's reliable, but we'll accept it. So here's what you need to do is look at the method and find out, does it really work? When somebody says carbon dating or carbon-14 dating is used to date the Earth to 4.6 billion years, you know already they don't really know what they're talking about. Carbon dating is one method of what's called radiometric dating. Mm-hmm. But carbon-14 dating is not used to date the age of the Earth. It's supposedly accurate only to about a maximum of 50,000 years.
Oh, okay.
So other types of radiometric dating is used. And
I see.
by radiometric, we mean radioactive substances that decay.
Right.
Okay? You know that radioactive substances are unstable, the nucleus, and they break down. Yep. Actually, you're an engineer. Why don't you explain to our audience what radioactivity is?
So basically how we measure the decay of radioactive particles is something called a half-life. So every period of length in time, the amount of that substance decreases by half. And then again, after that same period, it decreases by half again, and then half again, and then half again. So to do that, you have to assume a starting amount of that substance. And then if you have the starting amount and you have the half-life that and you have the amount that you have now, you can calculate how many years it's been.
Yeah, exactly. Radioactive substances are unstable. The nuclei are large. They want to become stable, and they do that by kicking out particles or radiation.
Thank you, everyone, for listening today. Unfortunately, we have run out of time, but please join us for the next part tomorrow. Same time and same place. If you enjoy our content and think this is important material, the best compliment you can pay is by sharing this with your friends and family. This helps us out a lot. Also, if you enjoyed today's program, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to this podcast. We would love to hear from you. Thank you for listening to the Truth in My Days podcast with John Torse. We would love to hear from you. Please feel free to share any questions or comments you may have. You can reach us on Facebook, Instagram, MeWe, and YouTube. Simply search Truth in My Days as one word. Again, Truth in My Days as one word, no spaces in between. And you can connect with us. You may also visit our website for more comprehensive material and to learn more about our ministry. Our website is truthinmydays.com. Thank you.